live on Facebook now, officially, with April for Spotlight Sunday. And I'm so excited for this one. It's going to be awesome. I can already tell just by the title. So, April,
no pressure.
If you want to go ahead and I'm going to pull it up on my side so I can make sure and see everyone's comments. But if you want to go ahead and start, just kind of introduce yourself and tell us about you and your business and all that fun stuff.
Okay. All right. So I'm April Caldwell, and the name of my business is April Caldwell, Inc. And what I do is I'm a money coach. So I help women get really clear on their budget, their debt, how to handle their money. I know, like, one of the questions you asked me was why, like, you know, why do I do this? And, you know, it's like, I wanted to be a cowgirl when I was growing up. Yeah, I never thought like financial advisor was in my future. But the cowgirl thing didn't work out. But I grew up until I was about 16 years old. I was in an upper middle class family, like anything we wanted, we got. And then that kind of changed overnight. And we went to my mom kind of selling things behind my dad's back to make ends meet, like eating tuna casserole for like a year. And just, so I've seen both sides of that. And then combined with the fact that like my mama and my aunt were married to men that they hated, but they were financially dependent upon them, just influenced how I looked at money, how I wanted to handle my money as an adult. And to this day still impacts like my money decisions. So I knew, I knew I wanted to learn everything that I could so that I would never be in that position. And so right out of high school, I started working in the financial industry, and that's been 20 plus years, actually. Since I graduated from high school. If you're doing the math in your head, I'm old. But so I spent time just in the financial industry in different jobs. And then I spent the last 10 years as a financial advisor for a well-known firm. But what I was seeing was that, you know, I only work with women. That's my passion. And I would tell these women, okay, you need to go save $900, $1,200 a month to get ready for retirement. And they'd be like, okay, yeah, like I have no clue how to do that. You know, where do I find $1,000 in my budget? And I just really started helping with budgeting and debt. I'm a budget nerd. I love it. And that's kind of how coaching came about out of this.
Cool. I love hearing like the whole backstory of how everyone gets started. So that's super interesting. And I love like how that just comes together from your personal story. And like, I love it when that happens and people are just super passionate about their thing, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's important. I mean, if you're going to do something, it should be something you love, I think.
Yes, for sure. Okay. So let me pop this up here. Okay, so now I can see comments. So if you're watching, make sure and always say hi so I know that you're here. And then the next question before we dive in that I always have to ask everybody, since branding is my thing, kind of how do you define branding and how has it affected your business, if at all?
Okay, yeah, no, I think branding is super important. I think that it helps me know like my path of, you know, what I should be doing, how I should be doing it, keeping me on track so I don't go like 50 million different ways. And what I love about it is I was really like, I had a strong presence on social media right when I got started locally. So I would go to events and be like, I know your face. I'm like, yeah, you do.
Perfect.
So to me, so that's part of branding. I think the other piece of branding is just being really authentic, you know, and speaking how I speak. Like I'm not going to go and do a speaking event or do, you know, an email or even talk to a client in a way that's not me. Like I'm corny. I have a dry sense of humor. You know, I'm going to try and make things as fun as they can be because that's who I am. So I think that's part of branding, is just being really true to who you are.
Yes, I love it.
Perfect. You're the expert, so tell me if I'm right.
No, I love it. And, you know, kind of like I said a second ago, and like you said, there's like a ton of different parts of branding. So everything, kind of how everything fits together is how I like to define it. But you can focus on different parts. A lot of brand strategists that I know focus on like the story and pulling stuff in that way. I focus on the personality. So I love that you said that, getting your personality in there so it feels really authentic to you. So I love it. That's perfect.
Good. Right.
I haven't had anyone yet that just like says something totally crazy. And I think by the time you come on here, you kind of know a little bit about branding if you're doing these. So if somebody's ever like, oh, it's your logo, no, it's not. You're wrong.
Right. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't be mean. But anyway, okay. So let's dive in then on what you want to teach us today about being financially sexy.
All right. So I try and make money and learn about money as fun as possible. Most people don't want to talk about it. We have a lot of guilt. We have a lot of shame around money, and we want to avoid it. Just like cover our eyes and not, and really come from a place of being more reactive than like proactive. So I think that if we can kind of start with some fundamentals and just do like a temperature gauge of where we're at, then we have that knowledge and we know, which path we need to go on. So this is kind of like that temperature check, being financially sexy. So some of y'all may be too young to know that song by Brick House, or She's a Brick House, 36, 24, 36, Okay.
Yeah, I know that song.
For you? Okay. So those were the numbers in the song that made a woman like sexy, right? So these are the new numbers as empowered women that we
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to give you all the numbers and then I'm going to go through them. Okay. Perfect. So, and it's going to be totally different than 36, 24, 36.
Okay. I'm good with that.
Okay, good. Okay. So 750, 3, 35, 15, and 35.
Okay.
So I'm going to go through these and then I'm going to give y'all a link in the comments that you can go download this like PDF, when we're done here, but at least you can kind of hear me go through it. So when you get it, you're like, okay, this is what it means.
Okay, cool. That would be perfect.
Okay, good. The first number, 750, is your credit score. Your credit score should be a 750 or higher. That's what you should shoot for. The average is usually in the like high 600s, but your credit score affects your interest rate on your car loan. It affects your mortgage rate. It affects, sometimes your credit card's interest rates. So if you have a lower credit score, it's going to cost you more money. So we don't want to do that. We want to get our credit score. And what you should be doing is pulling your credit report once a year and checking all 3 bureaus, looking for errors, mistakes, and that sort of thing, just so that you can try and keep it as high as possible.
So I'm going to like jump in if that's okay.
Please. Yeah.
How do you recommend checking it? I just use Credit Karma and I check it, like once a week because I'm kind of weird, but
okay.
Like, what is the way that you recommend doing it? When you say once a year, I'm assuming it's something more in depth than Credit Karma, but.
Right. So, and actually I'm glad you bring up that you look at it once a week because I want to encourage you not to.
Okay.
So you want to check your reports. You can go to annualcreditreport.com once a year and download the reports for free.
Okay.
Credit Karma is a good way to kind of gauge it. It's not always completely accurate, but it's a ballpark, right? It's like the scale, like depending on what day you stand on it is like maybe 5 pounds this way or 5 pounds that way.
Yeah.
So the same with your credit score with Credit Karma.
Okay.
Check it if you're trying to increase your score, check it maybe every 6 months because it takes a while for these credit card companies and car companies to report it to the credit bureau and for it to show up. So if you're checking it every week, you're just going to drive yourself nuts.
Yeah. It doesn't usually change that much unless I do something crazy. But.
Yes, right. And so if you're trying to increase it, check it every 6 months. If it's good and you just want to keep an eye on it, once a year is fine.
Okay.
Okay,
cool.
That makes sense? Okay. All right. The second number was 3.
Okay.
And so this is for an emergency fund. You need to set aside 3 to 6 months worth of your fixed expenses.
Okay.
This is like the number one priority. A lot of times we are so conditioned to get out of debt first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to get out of debt, pay off all of my credit cards, and then I'll worry about saving.
Okay.
And this is what can happen. So if you're putting all of your money towards the credit cards to get out of credit card debt, and you know, that's the goal, and you're not saving and something happens, your car breaks down, your AC goes out, you have a medical emergency, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Right? You're going to go to those credit cards and charge them back up because you don't have an emergency fund. So you really want to start getting your emergency fund in place.
Okay. And you said 3 to 6 months worth of fixed expenses.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
cool.
know that you can, pay your rent or mortgage, pay your car payment, keep the lights on, that sort of thing. So, you don't want to have a huge, like if you have a $15,000, $20,000 emergency fund, that may be a little too much. You could do something better with that money. But you definitely want an emergency fund.
Okay.
And what I always teach my clients is you should have a savings account and an emergency fund. They're different. Did you know that?
Yes. Okay. I do have 2 different ones.
Right? Yes. So a savings account is something you are saving for, something you know is coming up, a vacation. Yes, we should be saving for our vacations. A wedding, a bridal party, shoes, whatever, big expenses, you save for those. And the emergency fund is for emergencies.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So the next number was 35. And this is about keeping your debt in check. So your debt should be 35% or less of your income. Okay. So what you can do is look at all of your debt and, mortgage, card, credit cards, personal loans, that sort of thing. And then add that up and divide it by your income, and that will give you your percentage.
Okay.
Okay. So that's going to do a couple of things. One is going to make sure you should have some cash flow, right?
Right.
If your bills are less than what you're making, you're winning, right?
Right. Yes.
And it's also going to help your credit score. So if your credit score is something that you are trying to raise, having your debt to income ratio is going to help that. If you're trying to buy a house, your debt to income ratio needs to be lower. 35% or less is the goal.
Okay.
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 All right. Okay. Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
I keep waiting for like, oh God, I'm doing something totally wrong. And so far I'm like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit better.
Yeah. See, and that's what I like, is because if we don't know, we don't know. Like we may be winning and not even realize it, Yeah. So if we're just trying to like, no, I don't want to look at it. No, I don't want to talk about it. Then we may not know we're doing the right thing. And we still have this stress and guilt that we're carrying around.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. The next number is 15. So you should be saving 15 to 25% of your income.
Okay.
Okay. Saving in a savings account, saving for retirement, and where you want to fall in that 15 to 25% is what kind of retirement lifestyle you want to have. Okay. Like I need to be saving probably like 40%. Okay. My retirement is going to be like off the chain, but I have a friend. I'm an Army vet and she's an Army vet. We just have different lifestyles. And so for her, a tent, and, an RV and her like boots, and she's fine. But she won't have to save as much for retirement as I will, because I'm going to have a different kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
So you want to keep that in mind. It's never too early to start saving for retirement. My daughter's been saving for retirement since she was 9.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I love it.
Yeah. So
I thought I was doing good. I'm like 20, or like I started when I was 20.
Yeah. No, I know. Believe me, it's really hard to explain to a 9-year-old why that money she got from grandma needs to go into her retirement account. But, but it's about instilling those habits in her. Yeah. So yeah, so you really want to be saving, and it's never too late to start saving for retirement either.
Yeah.
So I was just talking to a woman, and she's about 15 years from retirement, which is still a good amount of time. But in the last 25 years, she's not saved anything. So like, get that.
Okay.
And now she's like, holy shit, what am I going to do?
Freaking out a little bit.
Right. But it's not too late. You know what I mean? Like it's, you want to have something more than get there and not have anything.
Right.
So keep that in mind. You can really figure out how much you want to save for retirement to kind of look at your expenses now. And, you want to take inflation into account, but really about 75% of what you're making now is what you kind of need to have saved up to get annually when you retire. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So like 75% of your
yeah. Yes.
Okay. And how did you come to that number? Is that just like a national average or?
It's pretty much, it fluctuates again, like based on the lifestyle you want to have. Yeah. So like right now too, if you've got kids and, pets are super expensive and, you're going to school or, you're living in a bigger home than you expect to live in when you retire, you can kind of like, all right, well, the kid's going to be gone. I'm going to move into a smaller place. Yeah. And so you can kind of gauge what to expect your expenses to be.
Okay.
Just remember inflation, right? So $75,000 a year today is not going to be $75,000. And so I'll give you an example, a sexy example of how I see inflation.
Okay.
Because most people like kind of get it, but then they kind of, all right. So think about Oreos. All right. So
I already love this example.
Right? So I don't know, like 5-6 years ago, you'd get Oreos and the package was like this, right? Mm-hmm. And the sleeves were like full of Oreos. Mm-hmm. And say they were like $4. All right. Today, the packages are like this. And I swear I opened the package like a couple days ago. And I think they gypped me by because the sleeves were not full. Write a letter. But they're now they're like $4.50 for this instead of $4 for this. They did the same thing with ice cream too. Remember when they changed the sizes? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how inflation works, right? You're spending more for less.
Right.
So you need to keep that in mind when you're thinking about retirement.
Okay.
The other thing that I see when calculating like what your retirement number should be is people think, look, I'm going to pay off my house and I'm done. I'll be yay, free and clear. What they don't think about, you still have to pay taxes. Mm-hmm. You still have to pay insurance. You still have to pay upkeep. If you're in your 70s, you may have someone doing the yard and cleaning the pool. So there's still expenses, know. So I see people like in their 20s and 30s, like wanting to pay off the house, and they don't have anything saved, So these are some things to kind of keep in mind so you can have a sexy retirement.
Mm-hmm. I think that's like just that itself is really important too. At least a lot of people my age that like my friends and stuff don't really think about that at all. Not just financially, but in general, like planning out what you want your retirement to look like is, you got to start there to figure out how much money you need. But I think a lot of, at least, like I said, my friends and people my age that I talk to a lot are just like terrified to even think about numbers at all. So they just like, I don't know, whatever happens will happen.
I know.
Like, no, guys, it's not how it works.
No. And I mean, and like your mind can change, like what you want can change. Yeah. But if you are married or in a long-term relationship, or this may be the person you grow old with, you'll need to talk about what you want for retirement.
Yes. That's like one of those super important things that gets overlooked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because like I sit down with some couples, and they're in their 50s or so, and I'm asking, her, what do you want to do in retirement? And she's like, oh, I want to stay at home and play with the grandbabies. And, and I look at him and he's like, oh no, we're getting an RV and we're traveling cross country.
Yeah.
I want to be on the same page.
Conversation.
Right. And And I mean, and that may change, you know what I mean? Like what y'all plan together or what you plan by yourself can change in 5, 10, 40 years.
Right.
But just knowing you have a goal
Yeah.
to kind of work towards, because it's hard to put this money away that you don't see
Yeah.
and think about, okay, well, I can touch it in like 40 years. That's hard.
It is hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
I just like pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Like, it's over there. It stays over there. It just lives there. And
as long as you're like looking at it, you know, once a month, yes, you just kind of out of sight, out of mind. I hear people saying like, oh, my 401k, it's not real money. Yes, it is. You know, you're putting money into it. If you're lucky, your employer is matching you. That is real money.
Yeah.
And they just are like, yeah, you know, but you've got to pay attention to it. And don't cash it out. Please. Don't ever cash out your 401k. There are penalties and taxes. And then it's also, you know, that $20,000 today will be $40,000, $60,000, $80,000. So you're also losing all the growth on it.
Yeah.
So, all right.
So when you said our I don't know if it was this number or the one before, the 15 to 25% saving, does that include like you said your emergency fund and your savings account and like 401k or IRA or anything like that? Or are those separate numbers?
Yeah. So your emergency fund is separate.
Right.
So, but yeah, your 15 to 25, or if you want an A+ higher, is savings account, you know, retirement.
Okay.
So in your retirement can be your 401k from a job. It can be your IRA if you're self-employed. So, and
but
if
it all comes out of that 15 to 25%.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and your employer may match, you know, 3%, 6%. I would like you not to include that in your 15 to 25. Just think of that as like extra, you know, money. But yes.
Okay.
I like that you asked that. And then the final number is the second 35. So this is your credit card utilization. So those are like really like big words, basically says how much you've charged on your cards. So the way to calculate this, because you want it to be less than 35%, is add up all of your balances on your credit cards, all of them. Okay. And the average person has 4. So add them all up and then add up all of your lines of credit. So if you have a Chase card and your balance is 10,000, but your available credit, you know, your max is 35,000. So you add up every card and then you divide the balances by the credit lines, and that is your credit card utilization number.
Okay.
So it's how much credit you're using, how much you have available and how much you're using.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, when you go for a loan, they are really looking at this. If you're trying to get an increase on your credit cards, they look at this because what it tells them is if you have $75,000 available to use on your credit cards and you're using 10, they're gonna be like, oh, she's super responsible. Let's give her more. If you're at like 74,600, they're going to be like, oh no, we're not giving you any more. And what they, some credit card companies will do is they will drop your available credit. So I've seen it where you may have $25,000 available, you know, on this one card, right? That's the one card you're like not using, right? And all these others are maxed out. And, you know, you have charged $10,000 on this. They'll drop you from 25,000 down to like 12,000 because they don't want to, you know, be one of these other cards that are maxed out. They don't want to give you $10,000, $20,000 more that you can charge up. And this affects your numbers in a lot of ways. It affects your credit score, like huge, because one, the closer you are to being maxed out on your credit cards, the lower your credit score is going to be. If they drop your credit line, that again is going to show you closer to your max. It's going to drop your credit score. If you're usually over 50% using your cards, it's going to drop your credit score. So just keep that in mind. It's really important that you watch how you're using your cards. how they're reporting to the credit bureau, because I have clients tell me all the time, well, I charge everything and I pay it at the end of the month.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. If you are disciplined enough to do that and you want the points or you want it to be able to track or whatever, I get
Mm-hmm.
that. But it may not report to the credit bureau after, may report before you make your payment. So the credit bureau is getting information that you spent $7,000 on your card this month, reports it, it shows you're like maxed out, and then your payment hits. You know what I mean? And if you're doing this every month, it can really impact your credit score.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So just, a couple of things to think about. With this number 2 is if you're in the habit of using your credit cards, and some people feel they need to use their credit cards to like make the ends meet. If you're getting really close to your credit line, your credit limit, you need to keep in mind that interest payment. So, which can be anywhere from $100 to like $300 a month. Yeah. So if you're like right there and they put that interest payment on there, that's going to jack your balance up and you're going to be maybe over your limit and get a fee for that. So while you've got to balance savings with paying off debt, you do want to pay attention to how you're using your credit.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So hopefully these are like kind of like simple check-ins. Most people will be really good with their credit score, and some of these others maybe not so hot, or someone may have a great debt to income ratio. They make a lot of money. They don't, have a lot of debt, but maybe they don't have an emergency fund because they're just spending money.
Yeah.
So
I know people that fit into all of those categories.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, we have one question I saw. Let me see. How much utilization should we keep? I pay one card off every month with monthly expenses. I've paid all my others off. Should I keep like 1,000 in credit card debt?
Well, there's some myths out there that you need to use your credit cards to establish credit. If you already have established credit and you have a mortgage or you have student loans or you have a car loan, you don't need to keep a balance on your cards. If you don't have established credit and credit cards are the way that you're trying to, what I suggest is like use a card for gas and then pay it off the next month. I don't want anyone paying interest if they can avoid it. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Let me know.
Let us know.
Yeah. Tell Brooke if, but that's a great question, because the other thing too is some credit cards companies, if you don't use your cards for 6 months, 9 months, they will usually send you a letter like, we're going to close this. Okay, then go like put Netflix on it or something, because what you don't want is you don't want to pay off your cards and close them, and you don't want the creditor to close your cards. That both are really bad for your credit, but a creditor closing your credit cards I don't care if it's because you have a zero balance and you haven't used it for 3 years, looks really bad on your credit.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, do you have a question?
I was just going to ask, is there a difference between like an actual credit card closing it and a store credit card? Like my husband had a Best Buy credit card and he never used it and they closed it and it didn't seem like it affected it, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it probably dipped a little bit, especially too, the length of time we have these credit cards, the longer we have them, the more established our credit is, or our credit score will be higher. So if you have a Sears card or a MasterCard and you've had it for 20 years, you're like, oh, I never use it. I've paid it off. I'm going to close it. You're taking 20 years of credit history and you're wiping it out.
Yeah.
So like if the store closes for lack of use, you may see a little bit of a dip. But there's so many variables with your credit score and they change them on you. Because what's considered a good credit score changes from year to year, kind of with what the economy is doing and how the average person. So it's hard to really like stay on top of this. Yeah. But if you have your home, you have your car loan, and they're decent interest rates. If you're paying double digits interest rate on your car or your house, please like call me. Like that is so difficult. You'll never pay that car off. But I totally lost my point. But yeah, I about double digits on a car loan. I know. Like, let's pause. No. Yeah, you should not have double digits. Oh, so if you have the things you need and you're not going to need to rent an apartment or anything like that, your credit score, as long as you're paying your bills on time, like don't sweat it. Okay. Unless you're going to need to refinance or borrow in the future, like you don't need to obsess over your credit score. Obsess over your savings account instead.
Okay. Okay. So let me read these real quick. It was Tammy that asked that question. She said, yes, it answered it. I do use them for one purchase just so that they don't close them. And then she asked, so if my credit is already established and I have an 800 plus credit score, I don't need to keep a balance on credit cards. I can just use them monthly and pay them off, correct?
Yeah. 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 I would not keep a balance on your credit cards. Yeah.
Cool.
If you want to use them monthly, like you're doing for expenses and then pay them off, that's great. But no, you don't need to keep a balance and don't pay interest. Yeah. Avoid that at all costs.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Cause that's kind of what I learned initially when I had no credit. Like I got my Best Buy card. I had one too. It was the very first thing I ever got. And I bought my computer on it back in high school just so I could establish them. Yeah. That's really helpful to know that like now that I'm established, I also have an 800 credit score. Now that I'm established though, like I don't need to do that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And if you get to where you're getting a letter, that you need to use it. Yeah. Or if you get points, and you're going to go on vacation, you save up in your savings account, charge it on your card, use your savings to pay off the card, you know what I mean? And so that there's still activity. So it doesn't close, but no, if you are establishing your credit though, then yes, you want something recurring for at least 6 months to establish a good payment history. So you charge it, not all the way, charge maybe like 40%, 30%, pay it off the next month. And here's another secret. You don't have to wait for your bill to pay your credit card. Okay.
I love that one. Yes.
That you spent $40 last month. Go ahead and pay it. But yeah, you do want to kind of keep a rolling. You want to use it monthly if you're trying to establish your credit so that it reports to the credit bureau.
Awesome.
Okay. Do we have any other questions?
So yeah, now is the time if anyone else has any questions. And as always, if you're watching the replay later and you have any questions, just let us know.
Right.
Yeah, this has been like super helpful. And you said all of these numbers are in your download too. Do you want to talk about that for a minute?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm going to put a link. This is 5 Secrets to Being Financially Sexy. It really bullet points what I talked about here. It gives you the formulas, take this, divide it by this to calculate some of these. So yeah, that'll be in the link and you can go download that.
Awesome. I love it.
Yes.
I'm excited.
I want to add one more thing if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So I see people like stressing about student loans.
Ooh, yeah, good one.
All right. So I will tell you, I am 41 years old. Mm-hmm. I have a master's and 3 bachelor's degrees.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And last year I started paying on my student loans. Okay. So like I deferred those puppies for as long as I could. I went back to school and paid cash because it was cheaper than paying my student loan payment. And if you are in a spot to where, you're having trouble with cash flow, you're having trouble making ends meet, you need to look into a deferment or forbearance for your student loans. Like I will tell you, I know this is recorded, but don't quote me on this. I hope I die owing my student loans. Okay. They are not my top priority. Okay.
Okay.
My lifestyle, my savings, my retirement. Now you want to stay current on them. Do not joke around as far as going late with them. But if you have public loans, so like Great Lakes, Sally Mae, and they're not a private loan, they will work with you. You want to call them and reach out as soon as possible. But if you have some debt you're trying to get rid of and you're paying a $230 student loan payment, see if you can get it deferred or put into forbearance, pay the interest that's going to accrue on it, and put that money towards your debt. And then you can focus on your student loans after you've built your emergency fund. But but yes, don't joke around with them. Don't go late. They will work with you. But like, hey, if I can get out of paying mine, you know.
That's awesome.
Okay. So like that is not your top priority. That is like number 75. Okay.
Okay. Good to know.
Okay.
Looks like one more question. Can you share your opinion on being self-employed and saving 30% for taxes plus 15 to 25% to a savings account? Are there secrets to help you do that without living in poverty?
Okay. So yes. So a couple of things. One, I do not think whether you are self-employed or corporate, America, that you should live in deprivation while you're trying to get out of debt. So Dave, I call him Dave Ramsey, has a different philosophy. But I think we should enjoy our lives while we're working on these things. As someone that is self-employed, I will tell you the biggest help for me was a book called Profit First. It's by Mike, and I can't say his last name.
I know who you're talking about.
Okay.
I'm going to type that in the comments too.
Okay, yeah. This will really help. It'll help if you listen to it. Like, look, I do this for a living, and I had to listen to it. I listened to it for the second time, and I'm like following along in the book. Okay. Taxes and stuff, like I hire that out because I don't want to deal with it. Yeah. But it will help you restructure your business and your income in a way that will help you have income, save for taxes, have money for expenses. So, obviously we're trained to pay our bills first and then pay ourselves second. And I want y'all to flip that. Okay. I don't care if you're getting a paycheck from an employer or you're self-employed. We've got to pay ourselves first. So there are, I don't know who asked. I don't know. Was that Tammy or was that?
Yeah, that was Tammy.
Okay. So there is, read that book, listen to that book, do both, and set up your accounts the way that he says to set them up. And I think that you'll find it's easier to save for taxes, pay your expenses, and see a profit. You should definitely still be saving. If you've got to trim some expenses, I would do that. As business owners, sometimes it's like, ooh, I need that for my office and I need this. And back in April, I canceled all of my subscriptions, like everything that was on auto pay for my business and my personal life. I turned it all off. I stopped them all and I added back in what I missed. So I was able to reduce my expenses in my business that way, which can help you save for taxes more and pay yourself more, save more. So I hope that helps.
I think that's a super helpful tip. I love that. Turn it all off. Yeah. Megan says Profit First is the best.
Yep.
Everyone else referred me to that same book, so I actually have it on order from Amazon. Good. Yes, read it.
Good.
I've heard great things about it too. It's been on my list forever, so I'm going to move it up the list now.
I will. He's written like 4 or 5 other books that I'm going to check into. But yeah, if you buy it on Audible, he goes off script and you get so much more content than what is in the book. So yeah.
His new one is runs like clockwork, I think.
Yeah.
Like clockwork. And he has a program that he's doing with Adrienne Dorson, who's awesome. If you don't know her, by the way.
I don't.
But they've teamed up and they're helping entrepreneurs with his stuff. And then she's like a business strategist also. So
awesome.
Really cool too. But,
yeah. You're good.
Good. Right. This is so fun. Download April's thing. We'll put it in the comments when we're done. What was the name of it again? Does it have a cool name too?
It's 5 Secrets to Being Financially Sexy.
Yes, it does have a cool name. Okay, perfect. So, download that when we get done. If you have any more questions, just put them in the comments and make sure and tag April if it's a question for her, so she sees it because she doesn't get all the notifications like I do. So yeah, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a great night, everyone. And real quick too, anyone watching that's not already signed up for my 5-day challenge starts tomorrow. That's the pinned post in the group. So check that out. All right, everyone have a great night.
Bye.
Oops, that's the wrong button. Okay.